and then there's like a mic for muting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right to the left of that mic, there should be a little share your
Screen
screen
share.
button.
Uh-huh.
Is that, what happens when you click that?
When I click that, I get application screens, Firefox challenge debate. I don't get anything from my E drive. I think I have to specifically go down to my E drive first. And
So what you have to do is you would open up like, say it was a video you wanted to share. If you don't have like a second monitor, you would open like the video, and then that application would show up in your screen share options, right? It'd be like Windows Media Player.
yes, that's what it does.
And then you can actually share that application. Same thing with an image, like if you open the image up in whatever app.
Do I have to go to share your screen though somehow? I will,
I
don't I?
mean, that's an option for you to just share your entire screen, and then any application you open up at that point that's on your screen will be shared with the audience. If you want to kind of test it right now before we start the thing, feel free, just so you get a feel for it.
Let me see. Share screen. I need to go find my video that I want to. Here, I got my video.
Yeah, go ahead, open that video up and then just like pause it or something.
Yeah, I paused it, and now I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to get rid of it. Okay, maybe, just a second, maybe.
You got it.
You see it now?
Yep.
That's it. We can see it.
Anti-flat earther.
And can you hear it?
Yep. They say
Wow.
you are anti-flat earther or something like that.
Oh wow! Hey, I like this. I may not use it. With this good gentleman, but maybe this afternoon I might use it. How you doing, Boyd?
I'm good. How are you?
Now, where's your accent from? Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Russia.
So are you there now, or are you like in Europe or the States?
I'm right now in Ireland.
Ireland, very good. Very
Yeah.
good.
Republic of Ireland.
I can go ahead and start the stage if you gentlemen are ready for people to start going ahead and showing up in here.
Sure. Hey, thanks for that information on the screen share. And I won't use it with Void, but maybe with Battleborn I will. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I do not have any presentation or anything like that, if anything.
Just one moment. I need to grab the topic.
Yeah, that's okay. You don't have a presentation.
I want you to know, foreign accents. I have to listen really hard, especially you good folks from Europe and Russia. I don't talk to anybody from China or Korea, but a lot of people from Europe.
Yeah, I get you. Like, I have the same problem. Like, for me, it's even harder because, like, English is not my native language. And when I hear, for example, with somebody with Indian accent, I just do not understand what they say. Yeah.
Are you pretty good in Russian?
My Russian is good, yes.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Very cool. I like it. Can you say Bolshevik in Russian for me? Bolshevik?
Bolshevik.
Okay, sounds pretty close then.
Are you Marxist?
No, I actually, a long time ago, I had a Russian studies class in school and college, Dr. Don Davis, and it was a Russian studies class. And he had a brother who taught at Berkeley in California. And he said that his brother was left of Lenin and not John Lennon, but your your Lenin from your history. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious, man.
Are you from the US?
Yeah, I'm in the Midwest.
Okay.
I did something wrong. I didn't start the event. I started the stage. I'm gonna need to kill the stage real quick.
Hey, Void, could I ask you if you're recording this on YouTube? When you're done, could you send me a DM
Yeah,
with
sure.
the YouTube?
Sure, and feel free to ask me to edit something if there are
Oh,
some.
it's all good.
Yeah, okay.
I need to end the stage, and then just so like everybody in the audience, I'm gonna kill the stage, and then come back in, and we'll just click. I gotta click start the event. I accidentally clicked the start stage. Sorry.
Now it is.
Oh, good.
How do
It's raining outside, so I got nothing else to do today.
I murder this thing? And it's gonna ping everybody. I didn't uncheck the box. Some bit. Alright. We're good to go. Sorry about that. Hiccup.
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
Okay, so I think we can go ahead and get started now. We've got everything together. Do you guys, did you decide who wants to go first?
Oh, Void can go first if he wants to. It's his call.
Yeah, okay. Let me go first. Okay. So, hello, my name is Dmitry. So, we know the Earth as a globe for like 2000 years in common knowledge. Flat Earth is a statement which contradicts the reality on so many levels that I don't know even how to debate this, but I'm curious to understand how somebody would believe in that and what model of the universe they have. So, how I see it. There is a conventional science which produced all the progress which we use even right now to have this very debate through internet. Within this conventional science, the whole universe is pretty well described, except for some very specific deep theoretical problems. But it also describes the Earth conclusively and way beyond doubt as a globe. Meanwhile, there are people who say that the Earth is flat. I understand that it's impossible to get 100% consensus on any topic. And some people may even genuinely believe that reptiloids are ruling the Earth. But before any idea is seriously considered as an alternative to conventional science, it should be presented as a working model with no worse predictive power than the conventional science already gives, and should be heavily scrutinized. And if they state something like Earth is flat, then they should be able to provide the map of the Earth, radius, and answer all the questions already answered in the conventional science, which leads to a consistent picture of the nature coherent with the experimental facts. This is just how conventional science works, and I see no reason why any less standard should be applied to any alternative to it. So let me reemphasize. It is important to follow only those ideas which are falsifiable and confirmed after that. But the thing I'm struggling the most here is not even the idea of flat Earth itself, but the idea of the conspiracy behind it. I even do not really understand the point of this hypothetical conspiracy. What exactly conspirators gain from it? Just as a humble example, I technically was born in USSR and I observed the post-USSR culture. And you know, USSR tried very hard in its propaganda to expose USA in just anything and draw it as an evil as much as possible. But why USSR never exposed the globe Earth conspiracy? I don't know. I find hard to understand this. I think humans evolved in a way so that we have a lot of cognitive distortions and biases. And we need to work very hard to fight these biases and be as impersonal and objective as possible. And whatever the truth is, I believe the difference between me and my opponent is somewhere in this space. Somebody of us didn't work hard enough to develop properly functioning methodology to adequately digest information. Maybe it's me, we'll see. But in any way, personally, I actually find flat earthers very useful for our society. As any other counterculture, it makes the mainstream culture to improve. The fact there are flat earthers means that either scientific community is unable to speak simple enough language when it's needed, or the education system is failing, and or maybe something else, I don't know. Whatever it is, I applaud people who have courage to stand for such controversial positions, are they true or not, as far if they are sincere. I myself also was going against the mainstream culture all my life, but I also had clear criteria how to distinguish some cultural nonsense from useful information. And I hope during this conversation somebody of us help the other to learn a bit more about possible ways to process the information. Having said that, I hope to explore what flat Earth model actually is. Does it hold internal consistency while explaining different phenomena? What kind of math I can derive from it? Can I do predictions based on it? Can I confirm them? And things like that. That's basically it. Thanks to my opponent and hosters for this debate.
Hey, thanks, Boyd. I'm going to start my little countdown timer here. Hey, thanks for having us. I'll get right into it. Again, thanks, Boyd, and thanks to Modern Day Debate. We think it's a ball, though it measures flat. We think the Earth spins, though we don't feel it. We think the Earth moves around the sun, though we can't measure it. We think water curves around the ball, though we can't see it. We think light curves in the medium of air, though we can't prove it. We think gravity exists, though we can't explain it. We think there is a universe, though we can't verify 95% of it through dark matter. I find that really, really interesting that for relativity to work, you have to put the universe, 95% of it that you don't know what it is, out here. And then 5% of what we do know and verify we put over here, and we have general relativity, and everything works when we don't know 95% of it. So I find that really, really, really interesting. After spending time looking into Michelson-Morley, which I hopefully talk about today, Lorentz contraction, the Lorentz transform equation, special relativity, general relativity, the 1919 eclipse, time dilation, length contraction in Cavendish, it was quite easy for me to confirm the following. We do not live on a ball. We do not live on an oblate spheroid, or whatever you want to call it. It's interesting that most of us, we maybe at one time believed in fairy tales. We believed in the Easter Bunny. We believed in Santa Claus. You may have even believed in the fairy godmother. But fairy tales we didn't reject as we grew older. We didn't reject the fairy tale of the globe. And that's sad. Simple ways to know you don't live on a ball or a globe or a sphere or oscillating spheroid or whatever you want to call it. Gas pressure without a container, which I might illustrate in a little bit. No evidence of Earth curvature, no evidence of the spinning Earth. The sun is now illuminating the moon. We can see further than we are told we can. Rockets can't propel off of nothing. Large bodies of water at rest seek level, and the Selenelian eclipse, which is often called the impossible eclipse. We should learn to trust our eyes, our observations, and our experiences. So, my good friend in Russia who now lives in Ireland, let's see who's been funded more since 1958, shall we? When NASA first started, who's been funded more, globe Earth or flat Earth? Since 1958, NASA has been funded approximately 700 billion with a B since 1958. Space Force has gotten approximately 50 billion. They came into existence December 2019. How about all the other space agencies? I believe there's 75 of them now. We have education, teaching heliocentrism, 800 billion trillion in the last 42, 65 years. Entertainment, perhaps 500 billion. You remember the movies, especially the one with Tom Cruise last summer, Maverick. It had the globe and then it had Universal coming across the front of it. That's been happening since 1910, 1912, 1915. They're just getting real sophisticated about it now. Now, let's adjust for inflation. Inflation since 1958. Could it be that Globe Earth has been funded 8 to 10 trillion dollars, 12 zeros behind the 8 or 10, since 1958, all resources when adjusted for inflation? How much has Flat Earth been funded by NGOs, foundations, governments, taxpayer money, printed money, borrowed money since 1958? Zero. So the score is 8 trillion to 10 trillion in dollars versus zero. Do you wonder why science is often bought? Okay, here are some facts. 9 million people starve to death in our world every single year. 9 million starve to death. 800 million have hunger issues every day in our world. 900,000 are homeless just in the USA and UK alone. That's 5% of the world's population. 900,000 are homeless in the USA and UK alone. 25 to 50 billion per year could solve hunger in the US of A. NASA and Space Force spend $50 billion a year, or $136 million per day, to not explore outer space. Is that evil or is that not evil? This world is evil, and there are globers, anti-flat earthers, ballers who promote and defend this evil on social media, I'm sorry to say. My friends, the eyes are useless when the mind is blind. We are all born into a prison system we cannot see, therefore we cannot get out of. When the veil is lifted, there is no turning back. My friends, there's no turning back for me. If the evidence of one's senses are believed, then in the mind, the magic is made real. We have been taught, my friends, since we entered kindergarten, if not sooner. Maybe our parents flipped through a few pages for us in a book when we were 2, 3, 4 years old, and we saw a ball, a globe in it. Hey, or maybe they put us in the crib and put these little toys above us, and we saw Saturn, Jupiter, and the moon when we were in the crib. But most of us got it when we were 5 or 6 years old. If the evidence of one's senses are believed, then in the mind, the magic is made real. This is magic. That's all it is, because you can't see it through empirical and physical evidence. The doctors of divinity, the Roman Catholic Church, the Jesuits, became doctors of science, fabricating a whole new reality, rejecting the testimony of their own senses. Only one place was left to put their trust: in the architects of the new reality or the new science. If you go back to Cardinal Wolsey with the Catholic Church, he came up with learning against learning. The second learning was biblical scriptures. Cardinal Wolsey said we're going to have learning against the biblical scriptures. That was in the late 1400s, early 1500s. So, when my good friend said 2,000 years, that is incorrect. We will get into Copernicus, Hermes Trismegistus, and we will get into that soon if we have time. But 2,000 years is a fallacy. It is wrong, and I will prove it. So, when one believes the evidence of one's own senses and follows the conviction of his conscience, his liberty, his mind independent, his will his own, he will see the truth. But when one feels bound to reject the testimony of his own senses in favor of a version of reality that he has never seen, he has never seen this, he or she has never seen this, When one feels bound to reject the testimony of his own senses in favor of a version of reality that he has never seen or tested for himself, he bows his intellect to the superiors and teachers who have done the thinking for him, waiting attentively upon them to tell them what he is allowed to believe. Louis, I have minute 40 left. Louis Essen. He invented the atomic clock. Atomic clock is often used for time dilation proof. He was a professor of the University of London. He was a member of the Royal Society. He founded the magazine The Galilean Electrodynamics. A quote, "The contradiction of length and the dilation of time can now be understood as representing the changes that have to be made to make the results of the measurements consistent." Measurements. There is no question here of a physical theory, but simply of a new system of units in which c, the speed of light, is constant. That's Einstein. He wanted the speed of light being constant. And length and time do not have constant units, but have units that vary with v squared over c squared. Thus, they are no longer independent, and space-time are intermixed by definition, and not as a result of some peculiar property of nature. This guy just said that space-time is by definition, not by what you actually see in nature. This is where I'm going to go over just a little bit, so forgive me. I have a lot of quotes. I have 3-4 hours, but we're only going to spend whatever modern day debate wants. George Wald, Nobel Prize winner. He wrote in The Origin of Life scientific magazine, August 1954, and this will be my last quote. That leads us scientific. George Wald said, "When it comes to the origin of life, we have only two possibilities as how life arose. One is spontaneous generation arising to evolution. The other is a supernatural creative act of God. There is no third possible alternative. Spontaneous generation was scientifically disproved 100 years ago by Louis Pasteur, Spallanzani, Redi, and others. That leads us scientifically to only one possible conclusion, that life arose as a supernatural creative act of God. I will not accept that philosophically because I do not want to believe in God. Therefore, I choose to believe in that which I know is scientifically impossible, spontaneous generation arising to evolution." Johannes Kepler even said that it is philosophy that we see the earth revolve around the sun. Kepler, one of your big five guys from history. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I think we're going to open things up.
Okay, so Jim, you really only went over by like a minute, so you're doing pretty good on keeping your opening down to the 10. That's pretty great.
It's whatever you guys want. I just appreciate having the opportunity to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, no, doing great. So just since it was a little bit unclear, I think everybody's got it now. But if anybody wants to ask questions, go ahead and ping me on the chat to the right. You can get it by clicking the little chat bubble on the top right in the client. And then you can talk in the challenge debate text room if you want to text about the thing. And now we'll go to back and forth. Take as long as you want, and we'll stop a little bit in about, how long do you guys have? Just so I know when to cut off to start asking questions, depending on how many.
It's all up to Boyd. It's his call.
I don't know. When I get tired, I will let you know.
When you get tired, give us the 10 minutes heads up when you get tired. There you go.
Sure,
yeah, let's go for about 40 minutes and then check in there. So let's hand it over to you guys for back and forth, and go.
Okay. Yeah, so Jim said a lot of things, like with the vast majority of them. I disagree, of course. I agree with the notion that in the end of the day, the source of truth is experimental fact. Here I agree, but generally on everything else I disagree. And it feels like if we will go into each in single detail here, we will have infinite dialogue. So I would I'd suggest a bit zoom out and like talk a bit more philosophically, like more epistemologically. Like okay, let me feel free to stop me at any moment if you want. I also had a physical degree. I mean, I have one, and like I guess I'm one of these conspirators of globe Earth who propagate this idea for money, I guess, from what I understood from this speech. I don't understand what is the benefit to invest into false science when you can invest the same money into true science and get the same money, but also get more positive outcome from that. But again, it feels like we can go too deep into details. My question is actually what is your criteria to distinguish good information from false information?
Great question. My criteria: good information from false. I want to answer this, and then if I could go back to your opening and maybe remark if I could.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, of course.
No problem. I think a lot of it, Void, just comes down to the simple fact of what does my observations and experiences tell me. What I said before. I mean, do I see, and somebody said it real well. I copied it down and I kind of added some of my stuff. You have things like this. All of our natural experiences tell us we live on a stationary topographical plane. I reject flat Earth. It's a stationary topographical plane. We'll get into stationary and Michelson-Morley here in a second. Water at rest doesn't bend. The horizon is always horizontal. The sky moves around us. The motion around the sun is never seen, never experienced. We'll talk about Michelson-Morley. It measures flat. We don't notice spin. We don't see light bend, which is general relativity, the bending and warping of space-time. I'll ask you about that in a little bit. We can't define gravity. It's the bending and warping of space-time. Dark energy is out there. I mentioned before, 95% of what we are told to get general relativity, Einstein, we have to put 95% of the universe out there and call it dark matter. That just makes no sense whatsoever. But that's okay because we get general relativity out of it. We have the elliptical orbit versus the circular orbit. In physics, the elliptical orbit works for the so-called planets. The reason we don't have circular orbits around the sun is it doesn't work in the math. It doesn't work in the physics. So the math tells us we have to make, because we made up the solar system. Let's just be honest with it. We made up the solar system, and in the math, in the physics, a circular motion around the sun for any planet doesn't work. You have to use elliptical orbits. It's in the math. We don't live in a map. We don't live in a model. We don't live on a map. We live in experience. We observe things. Math does not prove your ball. It just doesn't. And so, relativity says we can't see the motion of the Earth around the sun. And so it looks like we are the center of the universe because in the coordinate system, you have an Earth around the sun or sun around the Earth. We have a coordinate system that tells us to our eyes that the sky revolves around us. But using the Lorentz transform, it mysteriously and magically transforms our coordinate system from sun around the Earth to Earth around the sun. That is what the Lorentz transform is for. It is 1 to the square root of 1 minus v squared divided by c squared, and you can move that. But whenever you invoke the Lorentz transform, you always go back to the coordinate system that you want, that Einstein wanted, which was Earth around the sun. Now, 2,000 years. I'll get to 2,000 years. You asked the question about how about a map? How about a map? How about a map? There was an early warning system put in 1957 that circled 500 miles around the North Pole. We cannot go there. We have the Antarctic Treaty signed December 1959, went into effect 1961. You cannot venture south of the 60th parallel without permission. You cannot freely and privately investigate. That is in Article 6, paragraphs 1 through 6 of the Antarctic Treaty. So, how can we get a map if we can't go north and we can't go below the 60th parallel south? And if you think a map or a model proves your ball, then we have some conversation to do. Thanks, Void. I went on a little long there.
Okay. You said that Lorentz transformation exists only for making heliocentric model of our solar system, if I understood you correctly, but that's just completely incorrect. We can go into physics. I can answer on these questions, but like you said, that the main criteria of truth is what we observe. Like what I observe proves me that the Earth is globe, and it's my personal experience. I observed it myself. So one of us is obviously wrong if we assume we live in a universe which doesn't have contradictions. So again, my question, how to differentiate our experience, which is good and which is bad? Because my answer to this, there could be a lot of answers, but in this context, which we discuss right now, my answer would be to increase quality of information we observe. So, for example, in some experiments, there are a lot of factors which influences the outcome of this experiment. And it's our job to exclude each of these factors before we draw a conclusion. And this is basically what we do in science. I kind of I want us to sync up on this specific thing, how exactly we scrutinize information. I believe if we will sync up on this very topic, then after that we can sync up on if Earth is a globe or not a globe. That's it.
Void. Oh, thank you, Void. Appreciate it. You're very nice to talk with. Thank you. Void, do you know what the radius of your globe or your planet is? What's the radius of your globe?
Let me Google. I think few thousand kilometers.
Void, can you do it in here? Because you're a globe proponent. You should be able to know what the radius of your Earth is up here in your mind.
No. How I usually worked in science, I had a notebook and a pencil, and I calculated for days to get a consistent model of what is going on. If you want me to just off the top of my head throw facts on you, that's...
Well, without looking it up, without Googling it from Ireland, okay. What is the radius in miles or kilometers of your Earth, of your ball?
I would say about 5,000 kilometers, something like that.
Okay, so 5,000 kilometers times 60.62 would be approximately 3,300 miles. You're pretty close. It's 3,959 miles. Times 2's diameter times pi, you get to 24,901 miles for your circumference. So on that, using simple geometry, whatever you want to call it, can you show me anywhere, my good friend, where I can experience 8 inches per mile squared, which is what you would have as far as Earth curve if you have a radius of 3,959 miles? Can you tell me about 8 inches per mile squared? Where can I go and see it for myself terrestrially, which means on the Earth, not in some imaginary outer space, which we can get into if we have time? but can you tell me where I can go see for myself your curvature of your Earth at 8 inches per mile squared is what happens if you have a radius of 3,959 miles. Can you tell me 8 inches per mile squared, please?
If I understood your question correctly, you are asking where you can experience the curvature, correct?
Please, please.
I don't know, when, for example, you buy flight tickets in the southern hemisphere, you can see that the flight time consistent with a globe model, but is not consistent with the flat Earth model. You said you are not a proponent of flat Earth. You said something else. Could you explain your model, please, before we go
Yeah, I will.
forward?
I will. It's basically the same. I just reject flat and I reject Earth. I go stationary topographical plane. I'll discuss that in just a second. So, have you thrown it back to me?
Say again, sorry.
Have you thrown it back to me, Boyd?
Yes,
My
yes,
turn.
yes.
I
I thought I answered your question with a simple example.
Here's what you got, my friend. You cannot book, confirm, pay for, or take a flight from Sydney, Australia, to Santiago, Chile, going only is the big word, over the South Pacific Ocean. You cannot. When Max Egan did his little 12-minute thing, and people like Loon McToon and Jim Panda, I don't know if you're familiar with those people, have said that Max Egan basically said, hey, we live on a ball because he took the flight himself. No, he said that when he was awake and he took a compass, himself, he saw that he was going in a direction that would be consistent with a, quote, flat Earth or stationary topographical plane, and not what the airline was showing on the map in front of him. So Loon McToon and Jim Panda lied right there, but that's okay. That's okay. So you cannot, my friend, book, confirm, pay for, or take a flight in the southern latitudes from Santiago, Chile, to Sydney, Australia. You cannot do it. Now, the website, that WS website that is supposedly in Gambia, says you can look at any website and see you can take it. That's a website. That is a website, and that is Qantas Airlines. If we believe that we're lied to, why wouldn't Qantas lie on their website? That's all I'm asking. So, you tried to show me 8 inches per mile squared. Great. Thank you. Can you please show me one experiment by a scientist that shows me motion of the Earth around the sun? Just one.
What do you mean? Like we observe our solar system in telescopes, but before
Can you prove solar system?
Could you explain what you mean by show motion? What exactly it means?
I apologize for interrupting you. That was very bad of me. I
No worries.
apologize. You believe that the Earth revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit. Is that correct?
If we took the frame of reference of our sun, then yes.
Okay. So you believe that the Earth revolves around the sun. Can you tell me of one experiment in the history of science by a scientist that tells us, that proves motion of the Earth around the sun?
Yeah, we observe through telescope our relative position to other objects in our solar system, and we just see where we are and how our trajectory changes with time.
Those are lights in the sky, my friend. Michelson Morley started out in 1881. Michelson Morley, these people that I'm going to quote are all globe earthers, okay? And they're all scientists. Michelson Morley, and starting in 1881, their famous experiment in 1887. Every interferometer experiment since 1881 to 1930 and beyond have shown the motion of the Earth at less than 3 to 5 kilometers per second, up to 8 kilometers per second. What is the speed, Void, of your imaginary round globe Earth around your imaginary elliptical orbit around your magical sun? What is the speed that we're told that we're going around in the elliptical orbit around the sun? What's the speed?
The radius to the sun is 8 minutes, 8 light minutes. So we revolve in 1 year. So just I need to calculate. I don't want to do it right now, but from these numbers you can calculate the speed. As for Michelson interferometer experiment, I just did this experiment myself with this interferometer. I just know this experiment. Let me tell you about it. So the point of this experiment initially was to prove luminescence aether, because it was believed that electromagnetic my English is not that good. Electromagnetism works through some medium, and it was believed to be this luminescence aether. And if this aether exists, then there is a special reference frame, and the speed of light should depend on this special reference frame. And basically, this experiment was invented to prove that speed of light would change because Earth is moving through ether, but the result was null. So basically, it was proven that Earth is not moving through ether from this experiment. So it tells nothing else. That nothing else we can derive from this experiment.
It's interesting you say that, because obviously from the globe Earth side, you have to say that. We're told 66,600 miles per hour in elliptical orbit around the sun, Void, 30 kilometers per second. And if you go back to what even Michelson Morley wrote, they saw that the speed kilometers around the sun was somewhere between 6 and 8, approximately 1/6, which would be 5 kilometers per second. Every interferometer experiment ever done from Michelson Morley, 1881 to 1930, with Joule, Joose, and specifically Dayton Miller, and we're talking thousands of experiments, have shown the motion of the Earth between 3 and 5 kilometers per second, 1/6 to 1/10, and the most they've ever shown is 8 kilometers per second around the sun. Now, Einstein was really, really big into his relativity, and so he even wrote in 1922 at Kyoto, KYOTO I believe it's Japan. He even wrote that he came up with special relativity in 1905 to explain away Michelson Morley in 1887. What happened was that they saw, and every experiment since then has seen 3 to 5 kilometers per second instead of the 30 kilometers per second. Some have seen 8 kilometers per second. Nobody has even come close. So Einstein, in order to protect his relativity, because if there was any ether, it would be an absolute frame and would nullify relativity. So Einstein threw out the ether, called it an experimental error, so he could keep his relativity. Because if he knew the ether existed, it would be an absolute frame and relativity would be gone. That's what happened. Now, I just find it real interesting. You have a principle, and I hope I pronounce this right, petitio principii. It is basically talked about when you want to assume an outcome. You assume the initial point. You assume the answer. It's called Texas sharpshooting. It's called presuppositions, assumptions, reverse engineering. Einstein reversed other than him stealing photoelectric, which he won a Nobel Prize for in 1905, other than stealing E mc squared, other than stealing the general relativity from Poincare, he also threw out the ether so he could keep his relativity. My friend, I'm going to let you go and talk because I have another thing I want to talk about. I'm not going to, dominate this. So I just want you to know that from the globe Earth side, the ether is the thing you got to say. But 30 kilometers per second has never, ever, ever, ever been proven. The best that's ever been proven is 8 kilometers per second. Thanks.
First of all, a small favor, feel free to ignore me. No need to spell last names
It's not for you. It's not
okay.
For you. It's
Okay.
it's not for you, Boyd.
Okay, sounds good.
And if you're going to put this on YouTube, that's a good thing too. So thanks.
Okay. So I want to reiterate on this. Michelson interferometer shown that Earth is not moving through ether. There was no conclusion about speed of Earth and all that. That would be possible only if Earth was moving through ether. But since it is not, then you cannot calculate speed of Earth from this experiment. So what you were saying is misleading. Okay, I forgot what was next. You were saying, I should have written down. Yeah, sorry, feel free to continue. I forgot what you were saying late after that.
Oh, thank you. Arthur Eddington, who did the famous May 29th, 1919 solar eclipse. He was one of two expeditions that came up to that finalized the Royal Society November 6, 1919. He said of Michelson-Morley, there was just one alternative. The Earth's true velocity through space might happen to be nil. Can't have that, can we? Nope. And it's just fascinating. There is all kinds of evidence that scientists of the day, the globe earthers of the day, were really concerned about Michelson-Morley. I mean, there's so much evidence of that. Here is, let's see here. Here is Einstein, 1920, Relativity, the Special and General Theory. To the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments on the Earth, we have already remarked in section B of all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. No motion of the Earth around the sun. 1920. Michelson-Morley, 1887, going all the way up to 1930. Led to a negative result. Therefore, the theory of relativity was put forward. It was difficult to make reconcile to this negative result. What was the negative result? That it was nil going around the sun. That's your boy. Here is the quote I was talking to you about, 1922. Einstein. While I was thinking of this problem in my student years, I came to know that strange results of Michelson's experiment. 1922, he references 1887. How long is that? 35 years. I don't think Voigt's even 35 years old yet. I come to know the strange result of Michelson's experiment. Soon I came to the conclusion that our idea about the motion of the Earth with respect to the ether is incorrect. If we admit Michelson's no result as a fact, this was the first path which led me to the special theory of relativity, which came about in 1905. Since then, I have come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment. So we had Eddington who mentioned it. We had two quotes by Einstein, your boy, that mentioned it. So it is very relevant. Very relevant. But then Einstein had to throw in, because he had to, though the Earth is revolving around the sun. Even though our eyes tell us, in every experiment from Michelson-Morley tells us there's a no result of the Earth going around the sun, we got to believe it anyway. So I have more, but I just gave you three right there. And so I gave it by Eddington, who pushed through general relativity November 6, 1919. Tell me if I'm wrong. And 2 of Einstein, who came up with, you know who Einstein is, obviously. So tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me with a straight face, my friend, after this, that you think this is a model of the place you live on, when no empirical and physical evidence has ever shown that you live on a model like this. It's not anywhere. I don't know about your Russian education system. I don't know about your press in Ireland. I don't know about the movies you watched, but you have been brainwashed since age 5, if not sooner, that you believe on this. And they got you at age 5. You got to understand how propaganda works, Boyd. You get them young, you repeat the lie often, and you ridicule the opposition. Who's the opposition? Flat Earth. People will believe a big lie rather than a little lie. And if you tell the big lie often enough, sooner or later people will come to believe it. Now, Walter Langer said that, or his boss Goebbels, or his boss Hitler said that. So, my friend, I was brainwashed for 97% of my life. I am now free. All yours, sir.
May I ask another favor? Could you focus on some specific point? Because you tell a lot of points and I cannot address them all. We will infinitely go deeper and deeper if you will continue this format. We can do so. I'm fine actually with that. We will just achieve nothing if we will do that. But it's fine for me actually. So about big lie, yeah, I agree. Big lie is a working propaganda instrument. I totally agree. So like, but you say there is no empirical proof of moving Earth. That's a lie. Not lie. It's false. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying you're mistaken. Again, you can observe this through telescopes. When you said a few correct things, if you want a very brief story here. So indeed, by the moment when Einstein was working on these problems, there were Maxwell equations which had contradiction that speed of light is always constant, but in any reference frame. And you can easily build a thought experiment where it's false in Galilean principle. And on top of that, there was indeed this experiment with the interferometer, and indeed, special relativity and then general relativity was a way to reconcile our experiments we were doing into some consistent model, which can include all the facts we already gathered. I propose us, instead of jumping among multiple topics, to choose one and focus on it. So basically, everything you say is an attempt to attack on globe Earth. From my... let me... like, in my opinion, this is just like superficial thinking without an attempt to understand nuances of complexity of our world. But like, I cannot attack your model because you haven't really said what your model is. You haven't explained how is it like flat or not, like how you can get the situation where sun is not always visible, how you can like get. So about flight tickets, you assure me that I cannot fly ticket from Australia to South Africa. That is correct? That's what you state?
You cannot take a flight, you cannot book, confirm, pay for, or take a flight from Sydney, Australia to Santiago, Chile, over only the South Pacific Ocean. If you look at a stationary topographical plane, what we consider that, a map, you will see that it flies over the United States. That's why Some of the flights that go from those two places stop in LA and Dallas, Texas.
So,
Now you can actually look that up. Now, what can you take as far as a flight? That is the question. And there is nobody that has actually documented Santiago, Chile to Sydney, Australia, South Pacific Ocean only on your fairy tale Southern Hemisphere globe.
let me repeat my question. Do you state that there is no flights from Australia to South America?
Oh, there's flights. I'm just saying. Obviously, there's flights, but it's not on your imaginary spinning, watery, curvy, bendy ball in the vacuum of outer space. Yes, there are absolutely flights on a stationary topographical plane. Stationary, Michelson-Morley, topographical. Uh, Mount Everest is 29,200 feet. The basins of the Pacific Ocean is 36,000. We're told that's 13 miles, and we're generally a plane. So stationary, Michelson-Morley, Dayton Miller, Juice, all the way up to now, stationary, not going around the sun, topographical, absolutely, and we're generally a plane.
So you say if I will try to look for direct flights in southern hemisphere, the time of flight of these planes would be consistent with your model, but not globe model. That is correct?
You are looking at a website. Is that correct, sir?
Not yet. I was starting to look for website, but I haven't found yet. Just I'm talking with you. Have very little brain power to do that job.
Yeah, it's all good. There are a lot of people, and I used to be like one of them. There's a lot of people that would get their laptop or get their iPhone or whatever, and they go, okay, let's go look at the websites and Qantas specifically, and let's see what they are. You don't think they would lie to protect a globe lie?
I
The globe is a lie. People will lie to protect their lie. If you lie, will you lie to protect that lie? Would you? I'm not saying you lie, but if you lied about something, whether you knew it or not, because you were taught it, would you lie to protect that lie?
well, different people are different. In childhood I lied quite a lot, but since then I try to correct myself to avoid lie as much as possible. But like you say, okay, if there is a flight which consistent by flight time with the globe Earth, then it's a lie. The problem is I do travel somewhat. I have been in some amount of countries, and my friends all travel. And I know these people for a lot of years. I studied with them together, and they fly in southern hemisphere. And they invited me. I can also fly. I can do this experiment and share the results with you if you want. It's fine with me. So you say that's a lie, correct? And my experiment will fail if I will do so.
We live on a stationary topographical plane. We cannot go within, because of the early warning system that I told you about in 1957. We cannot go within 500 miles of the North Pole. We cannot go 60 degrees south of the south latitude because of the Antarctic Treaty, Article 6, paragraph 1 through 6. You cannot freely and privately explore without permission. There is now a 6-month waiting period in the United States to be able to go down there. And if you go down there and you get permission, if you're one of the 54 countries that are part of the Antarctic Treaty, of the 206 countries that the UN now recognizes, you can go anywhere you want to. The highest temperature it gets in January, which is their summer, is 9 degrees above zero. The lowest it's ever gotten is 135 degrees below zero. So if you want to go there and not take dogs, a snowmobile, and have to take your skis only and pull things behind you and pick up your own manure, if you want to do it, that's great. But you got to wait 6 months to get permission to do it. Otherwise, you can go from a little place in South America and you can go down to a little peninsula of the Antarctic region. You can spend 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, and you can go down to peninsula. If they let you off the boat, you can go a certain place, go look at the penguins, and then you come back. That is the only two ways you can do it. Now, let me even help you out here a little bit. There was somebody called Jala and Samuel Massey. They decided not to ask any permission whatsoever. Samuel Massey is from New Zealand. Not permission whatsoever. They got stopped below the 60th parallel south. They paid thousands of dollars in fines and lost their yachts. Now, you can actually, anybody here can Google that. So, it's fascinating. People who say, well, I could, Loon McToon, I know you probably don't know Loon because you're in Ireland, but he'll say things that are exactly opposite of the truth. And when somebody, I'm pretty old. I don't like to be lied to. And so when somebody lies to me, and I know your globe model pretty well, I just come back and say, hey, I'm not going to call Void a liar because Void's a very nice person. And so I know what's going on, guys. I was brainwashed at age 5, like Void was, and we believe the lie today. We got over the Easter Bunny. We got over the fairy godmother. We got over Santa Claus. Hopefully we got over Santa Claus. I hope we did. I don't know. Hey, you know what, Void? I want to have a little fun here. I have a model. The model is Santa Claus. I have a mathematical equation. I have the equation. I have a mathematical equation of Santa Claus.
Hey, Jim. I'm sorry, Jim. Just before you go, because this is a new thread you're about to go into, and I just want to do a time check because we've gotten to the end of our 40 minutes. I want to check in on how Void is feeling. We do have a number of questions, so if you're great, I've put another 20 minutes on the clock for back and forth. This model thing is a great line to go into next. I just want to leave at least 15 minutes or so to go through some of these questions, so we have a number in the chat.
Yeah, I can go, I guess, for hours in this pace. Let's rely on audience how they want. Okay.
Let's go for then another 15 minutes. How does that sound, Jim? You can do your model thing. You do some back and forth. I'm going to cut you guys off in 15 minutes, and we'll go into questions. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's fine. It's whatever Void wants to do. It's his call.
Yeah, it's fine. I asked you to try to focus on 1-2 points, but you continue to do multiple points. But okay, feel free to continue.
Let me do my model thing,
okay.
And then I want you to hit me with your points, and then I'll concentrate on your points for the last 15 minutes. Is that okay?
The problem is I start to forget first points when you tell more and more points. So this is not very constructive to do this format. But okay.
Yeah, if you remember them, I'll get through the model thing quick, and then
okay.
I'll give you the last 10 or 15 minutes. You've let me talk. Thank you. So I have Santa Claus. I have a model of Santa Claus. Now, if I have a mathematical equation that tells you about Santa Claus, math equation, because I have an equation, it's an equation. If I have a mathematical formula for Santa Claus, does that make Santa Claus real? Because I'm told that I have a model of the Earth, and I have a mathematical equations that prove it. So therefore, it must be true, even though there's no empirical and physical evidence that it exists, because I have a mathematical formula and a model for Santa Claus, it must be real because the Earth is real. And then I even have a model of the Easter Bunny with his egg. And I have a mathematical equation that proves he's true. So he must be true too. You know why? Because I've been told that I have a model of the Earth and I have mathematical formulas to go with it. So the Earth must be true. We must be a spinning ball in the vacuum of outer space. That's how globe earthers are thinking who come on and tell us these things. Battleborn, we're talking at 3 o'clock this afternoon. he's going to be one of them. And I think he has a special new equation for curvature of the Earth. I can't wait, Battleborn. Anyway, so I just want you to know that I kind of have an idea what you guys want. You know what this says here? This should say for propaganda purposes only, but it says not for educational purposes. I wonder why. All yours, Void.
So you were saying that I just blindly believe into something. I just want to like correct
Straw
you.
man. I didn't say you blindly believe. That's straw man now.
Okay, sorry, maybe I misunderstood. Um, okay, but you say that I believe into this system. Sorry, again, you're saying multiple points. I already start to forget the details. But I do want to address this. So, again, I agree that experimental fact is the bottom line of the truth about the nature. But again, if you have experiment which could be interpreted in multiple ways, you need to scrutinize it until the outcome is obvious. And obvious outcome is not the easiest one. It's the one which is necessary to do. Otherwise, it has contradiction. And for example, I work in a place where we were doing, our company was doing a global time system. And unfortunately, to make this system work, we need to use globe model, because otherwise our latencies would not work. We have a fiber optic laid on the ocean, and we know the distances of this fiber optic. And in a non-globe Earth model, like flat Earth, it would require to somehow teleport beginning and end of this optical fiber. This is and I have a bunch of similar experiences, so I rely on experience. I just believe that what I said in the beginning of the debate, that we need to talk about criteria we use to distinguish information instead of jumping on multiple topics, is what we need to do to achieve something here. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you. Hey, 99% of communication in the world is done through undersea cables, wires, and towers. Can you agree with me on this? Maybe we can hit one point of agreement before we're all done today.
Yeah, I guess.
Can you agree that 99% of everything that happens on a ball or a globe or a planet can happen on a stationary topographical plane until you get to outer space?
No, I don't know what is stationary topographic planes. Because of that, I cannot agree. I asked you to explain your model. You were saying you will tell later, and I never heard it yet, so I cannot attack it.
Can you agree? I'll bring it down to what the world has told us to say. Can you agree that 99% of what works on a globe, Earth, also works on a flat Earth until you go to outer space?
No, sorry. For example, there is a speed of light limit, and it influences the speed of communication between continents. You can feel this speed of light limit. And because of that, you can feel how long the cable is connecting different places. And because of that, you see that southern distances in southern hemisphere is much shorter than it would have been on flat Earth.
What percent of people in the world, if we believe it's 8 billion or whatever, what percent of people live in the northern latitudes versus the southern latitudes, or what you would call the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere?
I have no idea. I imagine like 90% lives. I don't know.
Perfect. That's really good. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can have undersea cables, and we can have wires, and we can have towers on a, I hate to use the word flat Earth, but we can have it on a flat Earth as well if there was a flat Earth. Would you agree?
Sorry, please repeat again. I distracted to a chat. Please, sorry.
Would you agree that if we lived on a flat Earth, if I can convince you that we lived on a flat Earth,
okay,
that a flat Earth would also have undersea cables, wires, and towers? Would you agree with that?
I think it would have been possible to have cables, and most likely we would have them, but distances would have been different, and we would have seen different latencies of communication through these cables.
So, what's fascinating is, do you know for a fact what these distances are?
I work in this space, yes, sorry.
And you live in the northern latitudes, or what you would call hemisphere?
Uh, yes, but I maintain the infrastructure which works on the whole planet. I work in transnational company.
When you see a rocket go into the air, do you assume it's going into the vacuum of 10 to the negative 17 core of outer space? Did you just assume that Artemis went to the moon? Do you just assume it?
Uh, uh, like you talk too specific. I don't remember mission Artemis. What is that exactly? But
It's the latest one. It's the latest one to the moon.
uh, okay, the one they want to start doing colony or something, right? I don't remember details. So yeah, I'm not assuming. Like again, I studied physics. I performed experiments myself, so I have enough like personal experience to know that there is space around our planet, and and we can see in telescopes this. So, for example, artificial satellites which circle around our planet, you can see them in telescopes. It's not a problem.
No flat earther, excuse me, stationary topographical plane believer denies that things don't go up into the air. We don't deny that. We don't deny things don't go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 miles into the air. When you see a Boeing 747 in the air at 40,000 feet, which is 7.5 miles, it's 245 feet across. Will you agree that it's, on a clear day, it's rather difficult to see it at 245 feet across, 7.5 miles up? If it doesn't have a trail behind it, one of those trails behind it, if you were just to look up on a blue sky day and knew a Boeing was up there, 7.5 miles up, that was 245 feet across wingspan to wingspan, would you have a difficult time seeing it?
If I have proper tools, then definitely not.
Just with your eyes, just with your eyes.
With my eyes, I guess it would be difficult because I have not a very good sight.
Here's what we're told to believe, Boyd, and I believed it myself. I even went out one time in Indianapolis, Indiana, and looked up and I saw it, because I thought I saw it, right? But the ISS, we are told, is 365 feet across, 50% larger than a Boeing 747. But it is not 7.5 miles up. It is 245 miles up, which is 30 times further. So something that is 50% larger, 30 times higher up, we're told that we can go outside and see it.
Yes.
I was told that the ISS is passing over. You can go outside and see it visually yourself. It is 50% larger. Now, again, you study physics, you know math. It's 50% bigger, 245 to 365 across, but it's 30 times higher in the air. Now, we have things in the air. We don't deny that. But you can go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles. People don't understand how high that is. And we can put things in the sky. You know what? We don't have to tell people what we're putting in the sky. We don't have to tell them. We can tell them it's gone into mythical outer space, 10 to the negative 17 torr, which is a violation of Newton's third law of motion, which is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics, which is a violation of the inverse square law of light. You want to see you want to see the second law, you want to see the second law of thermodynamics illustrated for you? Here it is. Here it is. Now, everybody listen. Everybody listen. You hear that? Hear that little pressure? That is pressure being released. We are told that we live in now tell me if I'm wrong, Boyd. We are told we live in an open system, that you go up, 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 and sooner or later you will go into the vacuum 10 negative 17 torr of outer space. That is a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Absolutely. And then we're told when we come back from the moon, especially the Apollo missions, that we can go up, 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 up 10 to the 10 negative 17 torr of outer space. But when we come back, and we were told this during Apollo 13, supposedly Apollo 13, that if we miss this little window, we will burn up or we will bounce out the atmosphere. There was actually somebody, a scientist, the science advisor for CBS News, you weren't alive yet, Lloyd, who actually went on TV and actually had a piece of paper like this and said, if they don't hit this window right here, that's as thick as a piece of paper, they will burn up or they will go into, or they will flip out into outer space and never come back. But we're told that we're an open system, we can go out real easy, but it's very difficult to come back. Boy, some of us have gone, nope. All yours, sir.
So about ISS is too far. Yeah, but you can use telescopes. It's just like glass. You understand how glass work and how it magnifies things, so you can see things. I'm not trying to I just don't know how to put it differently. Sorry. As for what was you saying? Secondly, about second law of thermodynamics. So I guess just out of fun after this debate, I can send you photos of my diploma, what exactly I was doing in the university, because ironically, one of the major things we studied is exactly thermodynamics, and I had to derive this equation from scratch myself. So this equation is actually a statistical fact that the most likely state of macro system is that which is represented with the most of the equally probable microstates. And the problem with your example is that on air, effective force is acting, the force of gravity, and because of that, the probable states are when the particles of air are close to Earth, and because of that, the whole thing you were showing doesn't work. We can debate is gravity a force or not, because it's just effectively a force, it's a curvature in space-time, blah blah blah. But fact is fact. This is in the end of the day how it works.
One last thing, I know we're getting close to 20 minutes, so thank you. I want to comment on telescopes, please. Telescopes work the same looking into the sky as microscopes work when it comes to looking at tiny invisible microbes that cause illness, disease, and death. When you look through a telescope terrestrially on the Earth, you don't see galaxies, you don't see nebulas, you don't see other solar systems. The photos that you see are put into a computer. They tell the computer that they want to see this. That computer will make, will look at that, those lights in the sky, Boyd, that you see through a telescope, and they will make them bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the telescope will give you what you want. Now, that does not include Jupiter and Saturn, all those things, the wandering stars. But your other stars, that's what they do. Just like, and I'll keep it as politically correct as I can. That's what they do through microscopes. When they look at a microscope and they go, that's that little tiny invisible microbe that we've been dealing with for the last 3 years and 2 months, or whatever we have been. That is exactly what they do. And then they do a genome or a DNA sequencing, and they tell the computer, I want this. They do the exact same thing looking into the sky. They do the exact, to get your outer space, monkey religion or cartoon, and they do the same thing when they look through a telescope. It's called virology. And they do the same thing. Astronomy is pseudoscience. Virology is pseudoscience. that is a discussion for another day. But anyway, I know we're getting close, and thank you for your time. Thanks.
Just to clarify a bit, yes, you're right. When we look at very far things, we use computer algorithms
Thank you.
to reconstruct the image. Let me complete. But when we look at not that far images, like for example ISS, we just see it. But about reconstruction of the picture, it works similar in how computer tomography works. But you do use conventional medicine, I hope. Maybe not. Like, it's your choice. Sorry, I do not want to enforce anything here. I have just out of curiosity question. When we look at the flat Earth map and we look at Australia, so when we look at these distances from east to west, do they correspond to the map of flat Earth, or do they correspond to globe Earth? Because like today, each Saturday I talk with the person from Australia. I can re-ask him if he can confirm what you say after this debate, and can share the audio recording in a chat, in a debate chat afterwards, like in few hours after this debate.
I have a direct question for you.
Uh-huh.
Do you live on a map or a model, or do you observe and experience your world?
I experience the world, but I use map to organize my knowledge.
I have a model of Santa Claus. I have a math equation that tells me that Santa Claus is real. Does that make Santa Claus real because I have a model and I have a math equation? Serious
Again,
question. Serious question. Serious question. If I have a model and I have a map equation for Santa Claus, does that make Santa Claus real?
Okay, if we go to this level, let me give you a proper answer. So I don't believe in anything. The only thing I think makes sense is to get experience and organize it in our head. And a way to organize knowledge is to make models which allows to, in a non-contradictive way, in simple way, to comprehend all the experience all together. That's the whole thing. If we have some model of Santa Claus or whatnot, and even if it doesn't have any contradictions, I don't believe that the world is as this model, because I don't believe in any model. I just use models to organize my experience. And if we go to Australia, then it takes some time to walk from home to a shop, especially if your home is a bit easter than the shop. So I'm curious how much time it would take to go from home to the shop if we have specific longitudes of this shop and home. Like in flat Earth, it would take much longer than in globe Earth, and we can confirm it in real experiments.
You say that I'm gonna be sincere when I say this. You say it, but you can't prove it. You are giving me a hypothetical that I will never do, because I will probably never ever visit Australia. You know what would be fun is to actually go from Sydney to Perth, which is on the western part of Australia. That would be fun. I don't care about going from my home to the shop, or the grocery store. I care about going from Perth to Sydney, and then let's see. But for you to give me a hypothetical that you've never been to. Have you been to Sydney? You've been to Australia?
No, I just two friends who lives there.
Okay, two friends. I have two friends, somewhere else too. Have I experienced or observed that, Boyd?
Can I interject?
Please.
So do flat earthers have some kind of trusted person who we can all together bring to Australia and perform these experiments together? It would be nice content for YouTube if there is one person who we can just bring in. It will convince the vast majority of flat earthers of how things actually work from our perspective. Could you suggest such person and how to contact them?
I'll tell you what, Boyd. If you may not like this answer, But if you can get rid of the 1959 Antarctic Treaty, that 54 countries down there, not down there, over there, have to observe out of the 206 UN countries. If you can get rid of Article 6, paragraph 1 through 6, and let us just go visit. If you can get rid of the early warning system for the North Pole that came about in 1957, if you can allow us, because you could just not arbitrarily go into space, you have to get permission to do it. Now, I'm talking not outer space, but space above us, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles. If you can get permission for us to go up there, if you can get permission to get rid of the early warning system in the North Pole, if you can get rid of the Antarctic Treaty signed December 1959, went into effect 1961, if you can get rid of those things for us, then we might take it seriously as far as getting you a map. But we are told that we cannot do it. So you can ask till summer becomes winter or whatever. That's kind of a silly analogy. I'm not going to say until hell freezes over. I just did. And so if you can give us those freedoms that the governments and the world has taken away from us, then maybe we can take you seriously. But you're telling us we can't go here, we can't go there, we can't go up there. So, well, maybe we can agree to disagree or let it go or leave it for another day, maybe.
Agree to disagree is always easy, but we're here to try to converge at least a little bit.
I told you I can't go to the North Pole because the early warning system, 1957, within 500 miles. I can't go to the Antarctic region, 60 miles south of latitude because of the Antarctic Treaty. I can't go up without government permission. What else do you want to know?
I say that we can perform very easy experiment right in Australia. It would cost a couple of $1,000s per ticket. It's pretty feasible. At least I don't know if we can make a really big story about that, which would prove for the majority of flat earthers that the model they use is inconsistent with real experiments. Then I would volunteer to perform this experiment with some flat earther influencer.
Are there any blueprints, engineering, or architecture that you know of that when things are being built, whether it's canal, highway, railroad, oil pipeline, that during the construction, the blueprints, engineering, and account for curvature of the earth? Do you know of any?
Do I know any blueprints for construction?
Do you know of any blueprints that take into account curvature of the earth? In other words, when an oil pipeline is done, when a highway is built, when a railroad is built, when anything is built, do you know of any blueprints that say, hey, we got to take into account 8 inches per mile squared? Do you know any?
I haven't investigated this, but I imagine that bridges would require something like that. I mean, long bridges,
Why?
200 kilometers or something like that. I don't know, like Kerchen bridge, which was built for Crimea. I guess it should include these kind of corrections.
There are, I believe, 140 bridges in the world that are 3 miles long. 10 of those are over 22 miles long. When you look at the blueprints, the construction, the engineering, the architecture of every one of those bridges that are 22 miles long, which there are 10 of, there is no taking into account 8 inches per mile squared.
Okay.
Why?
Okay, we are again jumping between topics. I would continue this topic only after somebody will show me authentic blueprints of Kerchen Bridge, because otherwise it's just I just need to assume that somebody else digested information in a good enough way. Unfortunately, I don't believe people. I need to digest information myself, and because of that, I cannot just take for granted. Again, is there any flat earther influencer which we can take and which would convince you about the experiment results?
You cannot show me 8 inches per mile squared. You cannot show me motion of the earth around the sun. You cannot show me bendy light and the meaning of air You cannot show me actual photos of satellites in space, which I hear there are 8,200 of. You cannot show me anything. So why am I concerned about going to Australia and look at a simple experiment when you cannot tell me any of those things, Boyd? Why are you diverting? Do you divert when you lose?
I can show everything of that, but whatever I will show you, you will just disregard. So I'm trying
No.
to focus on
No.
specific fact which you cannot disregard, where we can just walk together and see what exactly it takes. Because whatever I will show you, you would say this is a fake, or this is there is another experiment which shows another, or whatever else. So to do not like waste time, I want to go straight to the conclusion. Let's just go together like with some influencer which will influence a lot of flat earthers and perform an experiment.
Where can I go and walk on this great earth terrestrially on the earth and see curvature of the earth?
You can walk
Where
you can walk any
Where can I go? Where
Where-
can I go?
you can walk anywhere to experience curvature of the earth.
Where?
Anywhere.
Where?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
No, where can I go take a nice casual walk? Because at 1 mile it's 8 inches, at 2 miles it's 32, at 3 miles it's 72, at 10 miles it's 66 feet, at 20 miles it's 266 feet, at 30 miles it's 600 feet, at 40 miles it's 1,066 feet of hidden earth curve on your earth curve calculator, 8 inches per mile squared. Where can I go take a nice casual walk where I can experience curvature of the earth at 8 inches per mile squared?
Okay, let me say again. On flat Earth like model, the east-west distances in Australia will be much longer than in globe Earth. We can check what exactly distances there are. You can look at the sky, for example, in Australia and Southern Africa. But this is another topic. Again, I don't want to jump between topics. Let's just focus on the distances in Australia. Let's just perform this experiment. Why
Have
not?
you been to Australia? I have not been to Australia. You have not been to Australia. We have not gone to verify anything, and we are probably soon not be able to do to it. We are taking the words of somebody else. Is that science?
Again, I confirmed globe model for myself through other experiments, and I already told about them. For example, how optical fiber, for example. But if you want us to find experiment which we can comprehend together because of our difference in our background, let's just go to Australia or like and see for ourselves.
It's just a model.
It's an approximation model, yes.
Yeah. So you believe you live on something like this that's much bigger?
I think this is a more precise approximation than a flat Earth.
Okay. And so have you ever, now I'm going to be real honest, and then maybe it's time for questions. I'm going to be real honest. You tell me if I'm wrong. You yourself, with your own eyes, have never experienced through empirical and physical evidence curvature of the earth as described in 8 inches per mile squared based on a radius of 3,959 miles. That comes out to a circumference of 24,901 miles. Have you?
I experienced, I don't know about the numbers because I use metric system, but what I experienced is that when you try to connect two cities for 40 kilometers apart, you need to use like when you have 9 floors on a building, 9-floor buildings, and on top of that you need to place your equipment to have a direct sight, because otherwise the curvature is on the way. That's what I experienced. For example, there were other experiences. For example, I had a yacht. I sold it last year, but with yacht the experiment is not clear because you have different conditions and you may have different results, and so it's not as conclusive as that. I had a bunch of experiences, but I don't try to cherry pick them to make a model. I try to include all of them to have a coherent picture. That's what I try to do.
I'm all good. I can go on for 2, 3, 4 more hours, but I think we're probably coming close to an end here. What do you think, Adian?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think we should move on to questions now. A lot of them are going to be for Jim, but if they're a little bit open, then we can get a response from Void if it makes sense. And then after that, if you guys want to do a quick closer, we can do that, and then we can close up the stage and jump to the Flat Earth VC if you want to do some open discussion with the audience and that kind of thing. It's probably easier than bringing people up if they raise their hand. Just to jump into the questions, I'll read them off and then let you guys have at it. So the first question we have, and remember, these may have come in during any time in the debate. So if you don't know the context, do your best to answer and we'll just go from there. The first one comes from Be Good for Jim. Would you say that you are anti-current science on many matters that are considered facts? What is the name for that type of people?
If you consider your brainwashing and your indoctrination since age 5 that you live on this, if you believe that math proves your ball, then good luck with that. Science, I told you during this debate, $8 to $10 trillion with 12 zeros adjusted for inflation has been spent to propagate this thing since 1958. Who knows how much before that? So science, my friends, is bought. Much of it is bought. Astronomy is pseudoscience. Virology is pseudoscience. And there is some of physics that is pseudoscience. So if you want to, your default position be that science proves your ball and that people who don't believe in the ball, we should call ourselves something else. The conspiracy theory, my friends, is that you live on a spinning, watery, curvy, bendy ball in the vacuum 10 to the negative 17 torr of outer space, and your outer space travel violates Newton's third law of motion, second law of thermodynamics, and the inverse square law of light. If you want to believe, because you've been told since age 5, if not before, that you live on a spinning, watery, curvy, bendy ball in the vacuum of outer space, then you go right ahead.
Okay, thanks, Jim. The next question comes in from Anathema, and he asks, Jim, why do you think we should feel the Earth spin? If you look at the second hand on the clock moving, you can get an idea for how fast the Earth is spinning, and it takes 24 hours for one full rotation.
No, if you want to believe that we're falling at the equator, if you want to feel that you're falling backwards at 1,037 miles per hour, then have at it.
Okay. And then he also asks, if the sun is local, why does it never change in angular size? Also,
How do you know that? I want you to prove that. When you go down to the horizon, when things start to become, when things start to move away or come closer, you have different conditions above the sky. As the closer you get to the ground, the more conditions you have, heat, humidity, a lot of those things. So when you make the blanket statement that the sun stays the same size, angular, all the way across the sky, you are not taking into account what's happening above the ground, whether it's water looking across from St. Joseph, Michigan to Chicago, Illinois, or across the salt flats in Utah. You can say that it doesn't change angular size, but you can't prove it.
okay. I think he would debate you on it, but we'll see.
It's cool.
DJ Batman asks for Jim, can you explain when you look at the transmission lines at Lake Pontchartrain, they don't go straight the whole time. Can you see them curve over the horizon? And you can see them curve over.
You have as many people that have seen no curvature Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana than you have seen your imaginary curvature over 22 and a half, 23 miles, whatever it is. So if you want to hang your hat on conditions that are happening above the water on one of 10 bridges in the world that you think shows curvature because some website called WS based in Gambia, has told you that it curves because of something that's happening above the water. If you want to go with that, that's fine. That's like saying that there are 10 bridges over 22 miles long in this world that are show no curvature in the blueprints or anything like that. But one of those 10 is 5 feet tall, the other 9 are 6 feet tall, but because one is 5 feet tall, we think, then the other ones must be 5 feet tall as well. I reject the fact that I know people who have gone there who see no curvature whatsoever. There are conditions above the ground, that above the water, that we have no idea. What is the water underneath the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge level? Is the water level or is it curved?
Okay, thank you for that. Doofus asks for Jim,
Doofus.
why do you think Max Egan could use magnetic compass in an aircraft significantly made of metal with 400 hertz power delivery all around it and come up with a useful heading?
I believe that Max Egan, when he did his compass in the airplane, he saw that it was conditional. It was working on a stationary topographical plane. And whatever airline that he had in front, the little information, the video, whatever, it was showing this little curved path that they were on the South Pacific Ocean only. I believe that was a lie. So you go with Qantas or whoever that airline was, and I'll go with Max Egan going, you know what? My compass said that we were going this direction, which would be good with a stationary topographical plane going over LA, going over Dallas, and there are flight routes that you can look up that say they stop at Dallas and they stop at LA. Thank you, Doofus. Hey, next time come into a server and debate me one-on-one on video instead of hiding behind your text messages. Thank you for playing, Doofus.
Okay, so Jim wants you to debate him, Doofus, but I think we've also heard that on Tartaria. So the next one up comes from Darth Revan or Darth Revan. I'm not sure, Darth, how you pronounce it, but he asked, how does modern technology work? If space is not real, our satellites would not work for most of our basic technology like internet and cell phones. How does any of this technology work if it's not working under the globe model? Can you show the way any of these technologies work on a flat Earth, such as triangulation?
You have 99% of all communication. I mentioned this before. You have towers, undersea cables, and you have wires. You also have buoys out in the water, and so you don't need these imaginary satellites in outer space. You do not need it, and it is just something for your outer space fairy tale because you do not want to believe in God. Because you don't want to believe in God, as George Wald said, I don't want to believe in God. And every time that we go into outer space, we knock Genesis 1 through 31, and all these other Bible verses out. And so I didn't get into biblical cosmology today. But if you go into outer space, you're basically saying God doesn't exist up here, and it's just great with me. So that's why 90% of physicists are atheists, because they don't want to believe in God. So if you want to believe in a fairy tale and you can't prove you've been to outer space, then you go ahead and believe in your fairy tale. I can't help you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So I have another one for you from Doofus, then Void. We have a couple coming up for you. So Doofus asks, why did you say there have been no interferometer experiments showing the necessary motion of the Earth when Michelson Gallup Pearson shows the expected rotation of the Earth?
No, they didn't. That's okay. It's fine. Go ahead. Yeah, there has never been any interferometer experiment ever done that has shown 8 kilometers per second, 8 kilometers per second around the sun, ever. There's never been 30 kilometers ever shown. And Doofus, if you want to get into here, or if you want to get into Tartaria, you want to get into ADL, you want to get into Earth Awakenings, and you have the guts to get off your text messages and actually get on video like Void is doing with me today, which I appreciate, on camera, and go with me one-on-one, which you refuse to do, then I will take you seriously. But as far as you hiding behind your keyboard wherever you are, I don't care what you have to say until you have a set of guts like Void does to come here and actually talk to me one-on-one on video. Ask all the questions you want to. You can speak it, but you can't prove it.
Okay.
I would really wish that Doofus asked no more questions. If he wants to ask a question of Void, that's great. But he refuses to debate me. He refuses to engage me in VC with anything, voice chat with anything. So I would like for him to at least stand up and debate me sometime instead of hiding behind his keyboard like he's doing right now, and go from there.
Thanks, Jim. So then I guess we'll move on. He does ask some more questions of.
I would really rather have him ask me those questions, my friend, on a debate live on camera like Void and I are doing today.
Sure. I totally understand. And by the way, in reading these, that's a Michelson and Gail Pearson, not Gala. I don't know why I said Gala. Okay. Excuse me. Be Good asks for Void, can you explain why personal experiences and feelings can lead to very wrong conclusions?
Why personal experience? Could you repeat, sorry?
Sure. Be Good asks, Void, can you explain why personal experiences and feelings can lead to very wrong conclusions?
The problem is we have a lot of cognitive biases and distortions, and we tend to find some like models and cherry pick everything to confirm whatever we want to believe. And it takes a lot of effort to counteract that. So, like, one of the major things which we do at university is try to understand how to doubt things, how to check things, how to systemize knowledge, to be really sure we are correct. And this is one of the major things in science culture in general. All this peer review process, all this scrutinization, attempt to nitpick to anything that could have contributed to different result. Basically, this is the way how we try to avoid errors, but we still do errors. For example, physics believed luminescence ether should explain how electromagnetism propagates. Or, for example, we thought that classical mechanics explains anything before 20th century when quantum mechanics was discovered and things like that. It's fine. This is how it works. So we gathered some amount of experience. We gathered new experience which it contradicts what we had before, and we try to adjust our understanding to include this new experience. So I think the major problem with the flat earth is that they try to decrease amount of experience they want to consider in their model. They say, okay, I cannot travel there, I don't believe that friends they have, and things like that. So they try to reduce it so much that you can basically get any model. You can even concaved earth model to explain there. Yeah, I guess this is the reason why it could lead to different conclusions.
Okay, thank you very much, Void. I went to university in Tokyo, so I totally understand, especially if you're a little bit tired, being talked a lot to and it's not your first language. So ask anytime if you want me to slow down or repeat a question or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem at all. So the next question is also for you from Be Good. Void, what are your thoughts on people pushing unsupported claims and old debunked myths? Would you say harmless, pseudoscience, anti-science, or a combination?
So I think there is a lot of harmful ideas in the world. At the same time, I'm inspired with the freedom of speech of the USA. I envy that we don't have this freedom of speech, for example, as much as USA have in here. What I like about flat Earth, it's harmless. We have very harmful things like people, for example, believe that Putin protects Russia right now while doing a war in Ukraine. This is a harmful false idea in my mind. So I like that we have this flat Earth movement, which can reveal the weak spots of how we communicate to each other, because we got this internet, we got with all this knowledge, and people have no idea how to digest information, and because of that we have a lot of different ideas. A lot of them are wrong, and now at our stage of civilization, of how we evolve as humans, we need to develop methodology how we digest information, and we need to educate this information at schools. And I believe if we will do that, even if we won't teach for globe Earth or whatnot, just if people would understand how to digest information, we would have much less such debates, I believe. Sorry if I distracted from your question. Feel free to say I haven't answered. I will try again.
Oh, thanks. I think whatever you answer is totally fine. But thank you very much for that answer. Next question is again for Void from Doofus. What experiments exist that can confirm the speed of light is the same speed no matter how fast you move?
No matter how fast you move. Okay, so this is a so huge topic. There are ways to confirm it through observing objects in space. So, for example, this requires a lot of science. So, for example, you know that different chemical elements have different stripes on a spectrum. So, because of that, you know what something is composed of. But on distant objects, you have these shifts of these stripes, and the nature of how this shift works cannot exist without speed of light. And you can see that on very different distances from very different objects, you see always the same speed of light. And you can do experiments at home. You can just buy a bunch of fiber optic. Of course, you will have you actually will have different speed of light there. It will be lower because light needs to propagate through medium, through this fiber optic in this case, and it slows down. But you can use this experiment to try in different conditions. You can try to move back and forth. Do stuff and see what happens. You can put detector on this fiber optic. You can put detector outside this fiber optic and see how it influences the speed inside. You can see that the special relativity it is very consistent with everything you would ever experiment in this area. This is one thing. Another thing where it all comes from. It all comes from Maxwell equations. From Maxwell equations, it is necessary to have the speed of light consistent. And Maxwell equations was just generalization of experiments we had about electromagnetism overall. So it was not an attempt to do this kind of revelations about space and time and the speed of light and causality and things like that. It was just generalization of electromagnetism we had, all the experiments we had before. So trying to put this into equations which include all the experiments but doesn't contradict them. But there is so much more ways to confirm that. There are experiments. Okay, I can talk too much on this. Let me know if you want me to talk more on this. I just feel like I overuse time here on this question.
Yeah, I think maybe the next question actually kind of relates to this, and it's not for you, it's for Jim, but you're also mentioned in it. But it might be a good thing to set up as like a totally separate debate topic almost, because there's so much involved with it. But the next question is for you, Jim, and but thank you very much, Boyd. I think that was a lot, and that topic is very heavy. So this question comes from JJ Dawn, and it's could you explain more about how, by eliminating the values that Einstein just came up, according to you, to fit the globe Earth model, it is impossible to prove either flat or globe Earth model, but they both could fit into observable reality? And Boyd, I would like a precise rebuttal. So English isn't JJ's first language, so let me try to paraphrase that a little bit, maybe what he's asking.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think he's asking about when you were talking about the quotes from Einstein, eliminating the luminiferous ether. I think that's what he's referring to, and how that proves the flatter globe Earth. I think that's around when this question came in. And then Void, like what your response to that?
I think Einstein, basically, this is my opinion. I think Einstein is saying that there is no optical experiment, that we can do here on the terrestrial, on the Earth, that can prove that we're going around the sun or the sun is going around us. And there are, I don't want to get into it. I have a lot of other quotes from physicists that say, we really can't tell one way or the other. I guess I'll just do a couple. Forgive me. There is no planetary observation by which we on Earth can prove that the Earth is moving in an orbit around the sun. Physicist I. Bernard Cohen. Here is Poincaré. I often pronounce his name wrong, so forgive me. Physicist Henry Poincaré, who actually Einstein stole general relativity from. A great deal of research has been carried out concerning the influence of the Earth's movement. The results were always nil. That's just two. I should have some more. I don't want to take up too much people's time here. If I could quote, just for the sake of argument, forgive me, Boyd, forgive me, Yardian. Hubble said, Edwin Hubble, he said this. He's famous for his 1929 work on redshift, blue shift, ever expanding universe. Basically the scientific community gave up on Fred Hoyle and his steady state and went with because Fred Hoyle said Big Bang and as a ridicule because he believed in steady state, and so the science community went with what Fred Hoyle was, said was a ridicule of the Big Bang. But we have Hubble here, who basically said, Edwin Hubble, redshift, blue shift, 1929, ever expanding universe. He's talking here, and this is a quote. This is one of the reasons we can't do stationary Earth, center of the universe, Earth. Such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe. In a sense, to the ancient conception of central Earth, this hypothesis cannot be disproved. In other words, you can't disprove flat Earth, stationary topographical plane. But it is unwelcome and would only be accepted as a last resort in order to save the phenomena. What's the phenomena? Globe Earth. Therefore, we disregard this possibility. The unwelcome position of a favored location, center of the universe, must be avoided at all costs. Such a favored position is intolerable. Therefore, in order to restore homogeneity and to escape the horror of a unique position, we must avoid it at all costs. My friends, George Wald said that I talked to about at the very beginning. He would rather believe in things that are scientifically impossible than anything that might deal with God. And if you have a central position of the earth, somebody created it, and that somebody might be God. And George Wald wanted nothing to do with God.
Okay, I guess I go. So I'm not an interpreter of other people. I don't like to take quotes out of their context and try to assign them some meaning. I try to like read in context, and I for my shame do not know these quotes in context, so I won't do that. What I will say is, first of all, Einstein and others, they were not trying to prove like is Earth globe or not. It was proven long before them. They were trying to understand the nature of electromagnetism and if ether is involved into that. And the result of experiments showed that ether is not needed to explain electromagnetism. It's an extra entity. So this is one thing. Another thing about favorite position. So this is a common thing in science. I like not like very common, but quite common. Like we should not treat ourselves as special. It leads to mistakes. We should treat ourselves as usuals. So, for example, there is so-called anthropic principle, which explains why the universe is the way it is. And from anthropic universe, you actually can predict some cosmological values and things like that. And when you check them on experiments, they actually kind of aligned with these predictions. So this is fascinating. And this is the way we try to think. We try to think we are not special. When somebody states we are special, we ask what is the reason for us to consider ourselves special. There is nothing special about us. We are just like some organisms on some planet, around some sun, in some galaxy, and things like that. Everything is dynamic, is moving, and nothing special. So when Einstein says that, okay, I don't want to interpret him. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you both.
Void, are you not special? Do you not consider yourself special?
I guess the only thing special about me is that my specific conscious is placed in here. That's it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Next question. So DJ Batman asks for Jim, who does it benefit to lie about the shape of the Earth?
That is a great question. If I was inside the heads of the psychopaths who run this world, who've given us this conspiracy called Globe Earth, I could answer that. My own personal opinion is, and this is just my opinion only, there's a lot of money to be made. Space Force came into account in December 2019. They get 4% less than NASA. And we hear all about NASA, plus NASA gives $2 billion a year to SpaceX, what blew up a few days ago. And so what is Space Force doing with 4% less money than NASA yearly? What are they doing with it? So, and what is the $2 trillion a year in military spending across the world, 40% by the USA? What is that being done? So I think it's a lot of it has to do with money, obviously. A lot of it has to do with control and power. But deep down inside, I think it's what George Wald said in 1954. I don't want to believe in God, so I will believe in that which is impossible, scientifically impossible. So I think a lot of it has to deal with the fact that people don't want to believe in God. So it's money, power, control. But if you come to the fact that we don't live on a spinning space ball in the vacuum of outer space, what's the alternative? The alternative is what Void says, flat Earth. I say stationary topographical plane. We have to come to the idea that just perhaps we were created. Just perhaps we were created. And Void is very special.
Okay. The next question for Jim as well comes from Be Good. Ask Jim, the whole world conspiring against you and your team. Do you find it interesting?
I find the journey the last 16, 17 months to be not necessarily fun, but I find it very interesting and very illuminating. I gave up on politics and found out that virology was a lie, astronomy was a lie, and some of physics is a lie. So I think in a lot of ways it started a long time before I was here, a long time ago. It started, we didn't get into Hermes Trismegistus, and we didn't get into Copernicus, and we didn't get into on the revolution of the heavenly spheres. We didn't get into the Emerald Tablet by Hermes Trismegistus that Newton interpreted. And so we didn't get into a lot of those things. But I think in a lot of ways, I think there are spiritual things that are going on in this world that we don't know about. And I think there's a lot of evil. And this is just my personal opinion, and don't take it wrong. I believe this thing right here that we're told is 24,901 miles in circumference is the devil's invention. It is Satan's invention that we live on a spinning space ball in the vacuum of outer space. That's my opinion. And so, where the conspiracy is or how I feel about it, this is Satan's invention. The world, not this, but the world that we live in, that we think we live in, that's a ball. That's Satan's invention. That's my opinion.
Okay. The next question is kind of a follow-up to that, coincidentally. It comes from Anathema. And he asked Jim, how many people would need to be involved in the secret to keep the light of the globe Earth? And at what point would there be too many conspirators for you to find the conspiracy plausible?
That is a great question. I've kind of finalized it in my mind. I don't believe nuclear weapons exist. So the very top of the army and the military would only have to know. The rest of it is they come do their jobs, get their money. The very top of the medical profession knows that viruses do not exist. They don't cause illness, disease, or death. But the people that are in the hospitals, the nurses, doctors, administrators, are just doing their job. I think at the very top of NASA, they know that we don't live on a stationary a spinning space ball in the vacuum of outer space. So it's the very, very top. There's 18,000 employees at NASA, make $121,000 a year. That's a little south of $2.2 billion a year. I think you can get away with this big lie with not many people knowing. And so when somebody says millions and millions would have to be in on it, not a bit. You just have to have people at the very top that know, and then you can work from there. Because the other people have kids to feed, take to school, and even if they had a little bit of a question about what's going on, if they raised it, the kids don't go to college. The kids aren't fed. They don't go to school. We don't have a vacation. We don't have a home. We don't have a car, and we can't take our kids to soccer practice. So we just do what we're told.
Okay. Thanks for answering that, Jim. The next question, I think it's away from the conspiracy and goes to satellites. So Geck asks, Jim, in 2023, we have thousands of satellites in space. Private individuals can even launch small CubeSats with cameras, custom operating systems, and measuring tools that can measure how high in the atmosphere. These satellites are capable of taking several pictures and video, not just from space agencies, but from private satellites. Why would this obvious observation, verified by thousands upon thousands of independent people, not immediately from observation debunk any presumption of a flat Earth?
Is thousands of people a hyperbole, or can that be proven? And so that's the first thing I would say. When you say thousands of thousands, is that hyperbole, or can that be proven? As I said before, we don't deny on our side of the table, STP, stationary topographical plane, flat Earth, whatever you want to call us, that things don't go into the sky. Our question is how high they go up into the sky. And we don't deny 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles. We don't deny that at all. We deny the fact that you think that somebody can push off of nothing in the vacuum of outer space that you think that something inside that rocket is propelling something that propels you to go forward, when behind the rocket it has nothing to propel off of. So you're basically living in a Star Trek world, 1966 to 1969. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, that you see the Starship Enterprise going at warp speed, and there's nothing they're pushing off of, but you've been brainwashed from your earliest years that is possible. So the Newton's third law of motion is impossible. So outer space travel above what we think we can maybe go to 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 miles is impossible. So if you want to go with a violation of Newton's third law of motion and things pushing off of nothing, and you want to believe that, you go ahead. There are approximately 8,200 satellites, we are told. 4,600 of them are operational, we are told. 3,600 are not operational, we are told. And so if you want to believe the fairy tale of outer space travel, go ahead. 99% of all communication here on this good earth, towers, wires, and undersea cables, you have buoys out in the water. You don't need that outer space satellite fairy tale.
Okay, thanks again, Jim. The next one comes from the personable, and he's not in the audience anymore. It's from an hour ago and it doesn't have a lot of context. So if you don't know the answer, we can just move on if you don't remember. But he asked, if we believe it's 8 billion or whatever, can Jim be asked to expand on this one at his earliest convenience? But I don't remember the context.
Was there a question? I'm sorry.
That was the whole thing. If we believe it's 8 billion or whatever, can Jim be asked to expand on this one at his earliest convenience?
Oh,
And Personable is not in chat anymore, so I can't ask him to.
yeah, we're told 7.9, and I read recently that it's gone past 8 billion. So, I don't know. I mean, China, India supposedly have 2.8 billion of the 8 billion. That's 35% approximately. So I don't know. I haven't been there. That's what people tell me. So if somebody tells me it's 6 billion, somebody tells me it's 4, I wouldn't be surprised that I was lied to about that.
Okay. The next question is from Anathema. Jim, do you use Google Maps to navigate while driving or any other modern navigation app? If so, do you realize you're using a map based on a globe Earth? And if any flat Earth one were inserted in its place, you wouldn't work or be accurate, especially over long distances, especially in Australia, as its size is so very wrong on any flat Earth map ever produced.
I don't believe that for a second, but that's okay.
Okay. Moving right along, the Personable asks, in quotes, to get monkey religion or cartoons in context of things the nebulas they ask the computers to produce for them definitely needs expanding on as well. It's worded strangely, so if you understand that, you can just say whatever you'd like, I guess.
Yeah, everything, everything that we see on Instagram, Facebook that shows the nebula or the Andromeda galaxy, I think I pronounced that right. Everything that we see is computer generated. Just like these little tiny invisible microbes that we're told that we see under a microscope are computer generated. And when we watch CNN, those little guys are computer generated. When we see outer space, galaxies, and nebulas, that's computer generated. I don't know if it was Hubble. Was it James Webb that took that first photo, like 13.7 billion mile, whatever it was? It was just unbelievable. And it was, it was the outer space, stars behind it. Then it had the kind of the brownish thing in the lower half of it. Some people came up with the idea that that was the Algerian coastline, and you could lay them on top of each other, and it was the Algerian coastline. And so, who's going to prove that the James Webb took that picture when we have maybe the fact that it was the Algerian coastline? These people expect us to believe a lie. I mean, a lie and a lot. And so you can't prove it. You can say it, but you can't prove it. We should live in a world where you should be able to prove that you're walking over a ball or driving over a ball or something like that, but you can't prove that you're going over a ball. You can't prove 8 inches per mile squared. You can't prove motion of the earth around the sun. What we see is what we see, observe, and experience is a stationary topographical plane, and the horizon is horizontal. Everything, the sky moves around us, which could be a sidereal rotation of the sky, which translates motion down to the earth. It can be all those things. But because we were taught at age 5, if not before, that we live on something like this, then we believe it because we don't want to go against the grain. We don't want to stand out. And if we say at work that we don't believe this, somebody's going to think we're nuts, man.
Okay, thanks for that. Next question comes from Anathema again. Jim, the fact that you keep mentioning dolls when any discussion of scientific models is brought up seems to indicate that you do not understand what a scientific model is, how they are useful, and why we need them. I'm curious why you reject scientific models and compare them to dolls, which cannot be used to make an accurate prediction.
Do we live
Is
on
this so? And you can more easily dismiss the globe model and at the same time explain why a working flat earth model has never been produced and never will be. So that's the
Yeah, and I explained once or twice we can't because of the 1957 emergency. What did I call it? I forget what I called it. 1957. We can't go within 500 miles of North Pole. We can't go because the 1959 Antarctic Treaty signed December 1959 went into effect 1961. We cannot go within under 60 degrees south latitude to do an exploration. We can't go into the sky without permission. My friends, if you want, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. If you want to believe you live on a spinning, watery, curvy, bendy ball in the vacuum of outer space, falling backwards at 1,037 miles per hour, going around the sun at 30 kilometers per second or 66,000 miles per hour, going around the Milky Way at 450,000 miles per hour, going around an ever expanding universe at 1.3 million miles per hour, while we don't experience any of that, and we only experience stationary, we only experience a horizon that is horizontal, we only experience flat, we see the sky moving around us, we see the stars every single year reset, even though over the last 200 years, we should have traveled 2.2 trillion miles. If you want to believe that because of your education, your indoctrination, your ego, your pride, your cognitive dissonance, your Stockholm syndrome, if you want to believe all of that stuff, go ahead. I believe in freedom of thought, freedom of speech, everything. Go ahead. But you know what? You don't live on a ball. You don't live on a ball.
May I reformulate the question? Because I totally understand that question. I totally agree with it. But the answer kind of avoided what is in the core of this question. So,
Well, I'd already answered it, but go ahead.
Could you make a scientific prediction from your model which is more precise than what conventional science does and what we can really use to improve our life around?
Can somebody just go up into the air 30, 40, 50, 60 miles without government permission?
You again avoiding my question.
I'm not, because I'm saying to you, my friend, how can I get a model?
Okay.
How can I get a scientific working model if I'm not allowed to go 30, 40, 50, 60 miles into the air, if I'm not allowed to go within 500 miles of the North Pole, if I'm not allowed to go with 60 degrees south latitude to explore, if I'm not allowed to do those things, how can I give you a working model? And do you live on a model void? Do you live on a map void? Do you live on a simulation void? No, you live on a stationary topographical plane, and none of your experiences ever in your life, whether you're 30, 35, 40 years old, none of your experiences in life have ever shown you curvature of the earth, has never shown you motion of the Earth around the sun, and every interferometer experiment ever done has shown 8 kilometers per second or less. When we're told, you can Google this, the speed of the sun around the sun, the moon, the Earth around the sun is 30 kilometers per second, 66,600 miles per hour, but it's never, ever been proven. But Google says it, so it must be true.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that juicy back and forth. That was nice. A little spicing it up.
Hey,
We like that.
Boyd's a good guy. Boyd's a good guy.
Yeah. No, it's good. So the next question is for both of you. So that's also good. It's always good when we can get both parties engaged. So it's from Elusive Viper, and it's for each. Do you need to complete an experiment yourself to come to a good conclusion?
Jim, want to go first?
Oh, I would say, if you need to do an experiment, for example, I know Void doesn't like that, but I'm not real direct sometimes, and so, I'm working on a nice big experiment. It's called St. Joseph, Michigan, across to Chicago. It's with my P1000 that I picked up a couple months ago. And so I have a nice little tripod to go with it. So my main experiment is this. If I can look across St. Joseph, Michigan to Chicago, which is 62 miles, 54 nautical, 1.15 times, you get to 62 miles. If I can see across it at 20 feet observation height, which is about where I'm at, then I should not be able to see any of Sears Tower, which is also Willis Tower, 1,450 feet tall, 1,700 with the antenna. Because at 30 feet, there should be 2,038 feet worth of Earth curve hidden. And so I shouldn't be able to see anything. So I'm actually doing an experiment now, working on an experiment. I'm going to make 6 or 8 or 10 videos of it. And so I'll have my experiment. I'll have my observation that we don't live on a stationary topographical plane. Now, if Void wants to come back after seeing that video and tell me refraction, then that's okay. That's the conversation for another day. So this is my experiment. So I'm trying to do experiments, but can we do all experiments? No.
Okay, if I remember correctly, the question was, can we draw a conclusion from without doing an experiment ourselves, right? So in my head, there is like hierarchy of knowledge. Something is proven for sure, something is proven somewhat, and things like that. And until I do experiment myself and I believe in consistency of my memory myself, nothing goes for proven for sure. But it's impossible to continue our civilization if everybody would require to prove everything for sure. So we try to use reputation institute, first we don't trust, then we check if they were true, and then we kind of cache the result and reuse this result for other things which somebody publishes. For example, at first I was checking at first I was very harsh on publications in some journals. Then I understood how trustworthy these journals are, and now I don't need to recheck it very often. I just assume that trustworthiness remains as it was before. The answer is no. I don't need to perform an experiment to draw a conclusion. But if we do have a conflict, like there are multiple ways to interpret something, an experiment is a good way to solve this conflict.
Would Void agree with this following statement? You've had 100 years plus to absolutely demolish every flat Earth observation because you've had all the money on your side, all the science on your side, all the scientists on your side, and there should be nobody like myself that comes online and goes, hey, we don't live on a spinning, watery, curvy, bendy ball in the outer space. Do you think 100 years is enough time to be able to take care of people like me that that we would understand that we live on a spinning, watery, curvy, bendy ball in the vacuum of outer space?
First of all, it was already achieved. So, like, flat Earth started to get like second life only now, which is kind of weird, but this is reality. We need to work with it. It wasn't a movement for a long time. Secondly, the reason why I left physics and decided to go to IT is specifically because like there is no life. You cannot like live a good life if you are in science. So I don't know what are you talking about. Like all these very poor scientists in Russia, they all are like globe earthers, but nobody pays them for that. They dedicated all their life studying physics, studying like sky, particles, things like that. They scrutinize everything they work with, but they are still globe earthers. So when you say like about we have a lot of resources, I hadn't a lot of resources. I don't know what you're talking about.
When was your globe? You don't have to give a very long answer because we're probably running short on time. When was your globe cemented into the minds of people around the world?
When?
In your opinion?
Okay, in ancient times, there were like enlightened people who knew Earth is globe, and other people who just didn't care. It was like, I guess, I don't know, 200 years like after Jesus. I remember there was some counterculture in science like maybe 100 of years ago, and maybe flat earthers tried to do something then. I don't know. I guess I don't know. Like from my point of view, basically since like almost 2000 years ago up until, I don't know, 2010, 2015, I don't know, basically the Earth was considered globe.
Do you know who Hermes Trismegistus is?
Say again?
Do you know who Hermes Trismegistus is?
Hermes, maybe pronunciations are different. Hermes sounds like Hermes from ancient Greek.
It's Trismegistus, Hermes Trismegistus. Do you know that one of your boys, Copernicus, if he actually lived, supposedly he lived from 1743 to 1543, died in May. That when he published on the revolution of the heavenly spheres in 1543, that kind of said, hey, we live on we live on a ball. That he actually referenced on the revolution of the heavenly spheres, Hermes Trismegistus, and Hermes Trismegistus was a pagan sun worshiper, and on the revolution of the heavenly spheres, that Copernicus supposedly put in there that there was high praise for the sun and sun worship. Did you know that? And did you also know that Hermes Trismegistus supposedly did an emerald tablet that Sir Isaac Newton translated later on, and that Hermes Trismegistus is the father of alchemy. Alchemy is one of the beliefs is lead can be turned into gold. And Newton wrote over 1 million words on alchemy, and towards the end of his life, Newton said, I don't want any of this alchemy attributed to me because it makes me look like a stupid fool. And then John Bernard Keynes in 1936, your side, bought Newton's papers. He read Newton's papers. He went to the Royal Society in 1936, and he said Newton was one of the last magicians and not to be taken seriously. So you have your boy, Copernicus. You have your boy, Newton. You have your boy, Einstein, which were either total wackos or they were total frauds. And in Einstein's circumstance, a pervert as well.
Okay, I don't know if I should respond. That was long. I guess we want to go to the next questions.
Yeah,
But
let's.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm sorry.
let's go.
I wanted to get that in. I apologize.
Yeah, I think if you want to make a note of it or something, Boyd, maybe touch it in your closing. There's a bunch of questions. I kind of want to get through the
Yeah,
questions
okay.
because people are waiting, and we're gonna have to close up the stage at some point because Jim, you're gonna come back in like 90 minutes at this point, I think, and do it again. So. Okay, next question. DJ Batman asked for Jim, is flat and level the same?
Well, in reality, that's a great question. If you go to the dictionary encyclopedia, they tell you it's not. My experience tells me that flat and level are the same thing. Now, if you want to take the dictionary, who writes the dictionaries and the encyclopedias? The people that run this world. So I have seen dictionary, uh, and I've even been in a debate when somebody brought it up to me that level is curved. And so, from my standpoint, level is flat. But if the dictionary wants to say level is curved because we live on a sphere, okay, go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually skip to one for Void because Gek left the audience, and then I'll go back to his. So this question is for you, Void, from Neophyte IRL. The question is, a geocentrist named Aristophanes, an ancient Greek mathematician and astronomer, used a sundial called the hemispherium, which involves a hollow half sphere, i.e. the dome, and the sun's motion across the sky to calculate the measurement of the Earth's circumference. Who is the equivalent figure in the history of the heliocentric globe model?
Uh, I kind of do not really understand the question. First of all, like I don't really refresh in my memory so long, like so ancient history of science. But I remember that curvature was measured in ancient Greek through shadows, not through domes. So it's like sticks or something like that. So if you have two sticks, you can measure either curvature or like if you have at least three sticks, you can measure curvature, basically. As for who is a person for Helios, okay, I don't know. I guess the question implies answer Copernicus. Sorry, I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it was a history question. Maybe Copernicus.
Like Copernicus is known to like stand for the idea of that we are not so special. Like sorry, I don't know the question. I don't understand the question. Let's go further.
Okay. Next question, back to Jim from Gek. Jim, the reason we have undersea cables is because high Earth orbit satellites take 400 to 600 milliseconds for transmission between the ground station and the satellite to return a response. It's much faster to go over direct cables. In the 90s, we put down undersea cables to increase the overall bandwidth of the internet. In general, though, because these satellites are giving a consistent reading based on the speed of light and transmission, this proves the satellites exist and helps us show where they are in Earth's orbit. I'm not sure if that's a question or just a statement in response to
It's okay, and we didn't get into time dilation today, but supposedly you have your satellites. The reason they work so well is one of the reasons is time dilation, which is you get into length contraction, time dilation, and mass increase. So a lot of people will say that they use time dilation to help satellites work, quote, satellites in outer space. So I reject time dilation. And obviously I reject satellites in outer space orbit because of Newton's third law of motion and the fact that I know for a fact there is no outer space. because you can't function in 10 to the negative 17 torr. Newton's third law of motion does not allow it. The second law of thermodynamics does not allow it. You cannot go to the moon because of the inverse square law of light. The moon would be almost as bright as the sun if you worked with the inverse square law of light. So if people want to go with their outer space fairy tale, I can't help them. But communication on the terrestrial here on Earth operates through cables, wires and towers. An American tower itself contracts out much communication, and they use their towers. So I don't know if somebody wants to believe in their outer space fairy tale. They've never been there. Boyd talks about looking through a telescope. That proves nothing. If you're terrestrially bound and here, and you think a telescope proves your outer space fairy tale, then I can't help you. Maybe somewhere along the line you'll see that it's not possible, that it's actually impossible.
Okay, thanks for that. Here comes another question for you, Jim, from DJ Batman. Jim, if you're in a car going fast, how would you know you are moving without looking out the window or looking at the speedometer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's absolutely a non sequitur to dealing with Earth spin and Earth's motion around the sun. I think when somebody starts talking about a train or starts talking about a car, I think it's really immaterial, because if we believed we live in a fairy tale, we would notice those things as far as the Earth. So to compare them to something that's going 60 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour on the terrestrial, it's a good thought question, but it's not reality as far as trying to say what we're doing in the vacuum of outer space.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, also from DJ Batman, for you, Jim. How would Apple's new satellite emergency services work on a flat Earth?
Are they actually a satellite system? Is that what they're saying? Is that what the question was? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, how would Apple's new emergency satellite services work on a flat Earth?
I don't believe it exists. I think are you talking about Apple company itself? I mean, is that what the question is?
Yes,
reading Apple?
The new yes,
Okay.
Apple the company, they have
Well,
the new satellite.
if you believe that Apple has a new satellite, fine. If you believe SpaceX goes to the outer space, fine. If you think NASA goes to outer space, fine. If you think that the 75 space agencies around the world go to outer space, fine. So I'm not going to concede that Apple has a new satellite that goes to outer space. So if you read something, it's just like if you look at the Qantas airline website that says we can go to Sydney to Santiago, South Pacific only, and you can't prove it to me, and I know outer space does not exist. I don't care about your Apple satellite. I don't care about your SpaceX rocket. I don't care about your NASA rocket. I don't care. There is money involved. There are a lot of pockets being lined. People don't want to believe in God. George Wald even said it, Nobel Prize winner. Hubble even said it. We can't be a unique position. So if you want to go there, fine. I don't believe it for a second. If you want to believe in your fairy tale, outer space religion, have at it.
I think you misunderstood the question. The question is basically that if you have iPhone, which is very cheap to buy, you can use this emergency service by yourself, and it works. So you do not have connection to anything else but satellites. But somehow it works.
No, you don't. You can bounce it off a tower.
Yeah, but you don't
My
have.
friend,
When
you can bounce it off a tower.
What if you don't have a tower near you?
How do you know where the towers are? Do you know where every tower is in Ireland?
If we have flat Earth, I guess I can see these towers. So if you don't have this tower,
can you see Void? Can you see forever?
If in some weathers I can see very far in some kind of
Can you see
weather.
10 miles every day?
Sorry?
Can you see 10 miles every day?
I certainly find a lot of days where it's possible to see farther than 10 miles.
Okay. If you can see 10 miles, do you see something out there 10, 15, 20 miles?
Look where it goes to. In the end, we need to see far enough to see towers. What I'm saying, yes, you can see sometimes far enough to see towers, and you can verify yourself that there is no towers around you, but still it somehow works.
At 10 miles on your ball of 3,959 mile radius, there should be 66.6 feet of earth curvature. So if you lived on a ball and you could see 20 miles, there should be 266.67 feet worth of earth curvature. So if you lived on a ball,
May I stop you?
you would never ever be able to see 10 or 20 miles because everything would be going over the curve.
May I stop you?
Do you disagree?
Yes, I disagree because you can walk up to a mountain or some hill and look around. You have elevation, so you can see farther.
I'm talking about terrestrially. I didn't, bring up mountains looking out. I said, are you generally looking out kind of down where you live and not on a mountain?
Look, you can just take your boat and try to cross Atlantic Sea. A lot of people do that, really a lot for pleasure. And you can see that your satellite connection works there. You can get weather prediction. You can get some basic communication. You can do source signals through satellites and things like that. It's not like very difficult to find a place where you don't have towers.
Do you know the E-Loran system predates GPS? They started in 1930, 1940, predates and is much more accurate than any supposed GPS. GPS, stands for ground positioning stations and not satellites. Did you know the E-Loran system predates GPS and it's much more accurate and that's what's used? Did you know that?
Well, first of all, GPS
E-Loran,
is global.
E-L-O-R-A-N.
You are saying false. That's no.
Okay. In your globe fairy tale, what I just said is wrong. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So again, you can do experiment yourself. You reject doing this experiment, which would have proved that you are wrong, and you just say, okay, that's your tale, and okay, that's your opinion. And yeah, okay, I agree. Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry. We can go to the next question.
Someone did point out to me that for example, the Apple satellite service does work in the middle of the ocean as well. But okay, I think we have 2 questions left. I was just waiting. One of the people who asked the question, I missed the question because it wasn't tagged. And I just wanted to give him a chance to come back. It's for you, Void, but he left the audience. So I just want to give him a second. I tagged him in the chat room.
Okay.
In case he wants to come back real quick. And then there was another question for Jim, but I don't know where it is because it's also not tagged. So hold on one second.
Meanwhile, I'm curious, why is it so important that the Earth is not globe?
Why is it so important that you come on here when I got a question? What percent
I can
of the
answer
world's
that.
what percent of the world's population do you think believes that they live on a globe? What percent?
I have no idea. Let's say, I don't know, if we include like underdeveloped countries and things like that, let's say 70%. I don't know.
Hey, that's pretty good because most globe earthers who come on the internet will say 95% plus. So when you say 70, that's I think it's more like in the United States, you've had polling done that says 11% believe we live on a something other than a globe, which is 37 million people. I think it might be more because a lot of people don't want to tell a pollster that they live on a flat Earth. But yeah, 70%. You're giving us more credit than maybe what we deserve.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that other believe in flat Earth. I think that other don't care. And I'm curious, why don't you don't care?
Oh, I think the globe Earth is a satanic invention, and I don't want to live in a fairy tale that includes a satanic invention. Just like I don't want to believe in a satanic invention of the tiny invisible microbe that we've been dealing with for the last 3 years, 2 months.
I see.
So
Okay.
I don't want to deal with those things.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask this next question of you, Jim, and then Boyd, I'll ask your question. I don't think No Tanks must have had to go. Then you can do your conclusions, and we'll wrap this stage up, and we can go to the VC if you guys want to. And then Jim, I think you have another debate in an hour. So. Okay, so this question comes from Dreamspace for Jim. If you are 80 miles away trying to pick up a plane as another plane, and you're both at 10,000 feet, of course the plane is going to be picked up. But if the plane you're trying to pick up is at 80 miles, but at 200 feet, it won't be picked up. Radar flies straight, by the way. How does it not get picked up? It essentially flies under the radar. And then he has a picture of the Earth curving and the plane being behind the curve of the Earth and the radar. And you can see that. I know you can't see the chat right now, Jim, but there's a picture of the Earth being curved and the radar being, the plane being behind the curve of the Earth. I'm sure you've seen a picture like that.
Yeah, Marconi, basically shot radar out at 2,200 miles, and it's basically ground wave propagation. Radar works line of sight, and so when somebody says that radar curves around a ball, that's actually impossible because radar works a line of sight ground wave propagation, and Marconi proved it with 2,200 miles. Of a radar being picked, of a radar signal being picked up. Now, the globe will come back and go. It bounces off the ionosphere, and that's just fine. But no, it's not how the graph appears it to be, because radar works off of ground wave propagation, not sky wave propagation.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I'm sure Dreamspace would be happy to challenge you to a debate about radar. He loves radar.
As long as we talk about everything else too. As long as we talk about everything else.
Yeah, Jim is always down for debate. You can get him in the challenge board. He'll debate you as long as you're willing to get on your mic and debate him fair and square. He's happy to debate you. And then the last question, I'm just going to ask you, Boyd. Hold on, I gotta go find it. Boyd, how did you prove the curvature of the Earth to yourself as you stated you did earlier? And that question came from No Tanks.
So, okay, let's start with simple things. So first of all, you have sun, which raises and goes beyond the horizon. Like, to include this to some other model, you need to introduce hacks. When you introduce those hacks, you have other inconsistencies. For example, I don't know, if you try to make some optical system to do so, you will get optical diffraction, and you will be able to get this phenomena like by yourself at home. And I did various experiments even at home, just for fun. But it wasn't related to flat Earth. It just confirmed my overall understanding of science, which I use to, on top of which I can derive that the Earth is a globe. But again, I already mentioned few examples before. I don't know why this question appeared at all. For example, I tried to connect two cities, but apparently there is curvature which prevents you to do so. I was small, but okay, that's reality. Again, I work in some IT company which does this internet all around the globe, and we need to be aware of that it is globe to make our system working properly. I don't know that there is so. I guess there are two things. One thing is I try to accumulate consistent picture of the universe, and in this consistent picture, the Earth is globe for a ton of reasons, and there are just direct experiments which reconfirms me that. Even on top of these two, we can just do some thought experiments. For example, again, I'm not a fan of idea we are special, but somehow everything in the world is globular, but our planet is not. Again, this is not an argument, but just like a way of thinking. Yeah, I guess these three things. Overall consistent science picture which contradicts non-globe Earth, just easy to do direct experiments to confirm the whole picture, and I don't like extra assumptions, and I don't like to think of us as something special. But the last one could be easily disregarded. It doesn't really influence on the overall model. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you both. I think if you guys want to do a quick closing, you can. Let me know. There's a couple of people still left in the audience, and then I think we'll just close up the stage since there's another debate starting in an hour. And if people want to move to the VC chat room and keep chatting, then that's totally fine.
Hey, thank you for having me. Void, thank you very, very much. I very much appreciated meeting you. Thank you for Modern Day Debate. Discord, thank you. Yadian, hope I pronounced that right. And thank you for letting us talk about something that's pretty important. I like to talk about it, along with virology, but we're not really allowed to talk about virology too much. But anyway, thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I hoped today to do not change somebody's mind or something like that. This is like my first real debate on this topic. I mean, not only through internet, at all. And I was just curious to understand how it works. I was curious to learn more about the model flat earthers have, but apparently they have no model because apparently NASA or whatnot forbids them to do that. So apparently nothing to learn here. I was curious to understand more about differences on how we distinguish good information from bad information, but apparently we cannot go there. Instead we jump through multiple topics, but this is kind of disappointing, but yet I still grateful that Jim also participated in this debate. For me it was interesting. I haven't got information I wanted, but this was a nice experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Void, very much. Thank you.
And thank you for hosting this debate.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you both for being here. We will see you again, Jim, in an hour. I see Valborn is here now. We'll see him in an hour too. Thank you, Boyd, for coming. And I'll close this up. Anybody wants to jump over to one of the other open VC channels, people can chat about this. And hopefully we'll see everybody back in an hour. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Thanks, Void.
Okay, thank you. Bye.